John and Curtis, thanks so much for joining us today. I just want to quickly introduce John and Curtis to our audience. Curtis is the Director of Marketing at the Society for Simulation in Healthcare. He's really behind the scenes a lot, and unless you kind of get involved in a committee or with something on the marketing side, you're probably not going to meet Curtis or know who he is, but he is the man that gets things done at the Society for Simulation in Healthcare. And he has a big part in Healthcare Simulation Week. I'm going to ask him in a minute to describe what his activities are. And our second guest is John Alex. He is the medical director of the Riverside Simulation Training Lab. And he really, he is someone near and dear to my heart because he's also an emergency department physician. My background is in emergency nursing. So I said to him earlier as we were introducing ourselves to each other that I think a lot of emergency medicine people got involved very early on in simulation as an early adopter and really became passionate about what it can provide and offer, and took the bull by the horns and got started. So again, someone very near and dear to my heart, but I just want you guys to spend just a couple minutes describing what your role is this year in Healthcare Simulation Week 2024.
John, you want to start?
All right. Sure. Happy to. So Amy, Curtis, good morning. Thanks again for having us. I think this is a great opportunity. I really appreciate the chance to talk about Healthcare Sim Week. So I'm one of the planning co-chairs for Healthcare Sim Week 2024. I started with the team last year. I was one of the co-chairs for 2023. And to be perfectly honest, at that time, as we discussed earlier, I had very little idea of what was involved. And I always heard about Healthcare Sim Week. I wanted to know more and just kind of jumped in, and fortunately was selected to be part of the team. We had an amazing team last year. We've got an amazing team this year. It's been a very powerful experience. And I think we've got a great idea for this year as well. So it's been great to work with Curtis and the rest of our team, and looking forward to September.
Yep. And Curtis?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am, how do we want to put this? I'm the lucky one who gets to put all of the awesome thoughts from our planning co-chairs each year into action, right? We take all the logistics pieces of it, figure out what tools we need, everything from theme development at the top. I guess I should have started there, all the way down to seeing the week through. And I think each year, I think we're going now into about our 7th year of this campaign, and I've been here for about 5 of those. It's been cool to see the sophistication come around the campaign itself. It sort of started as this, well, that sounds neat, and we have this date on the calendar, but what do we do with it now? And it's gone from that to really becoming this synchronous event that helps propel SSH and propel healthcare simulation into some other bigger events at the turn of the year, including IMSH. And seeing it all work together and having the ability to work with you all as staff has been super enriching and super enlightening for me. And it really gives me a chance year to year to hear what's important to the community, to the industry, and then being able to take that information and flip it into something that folks can then use on their local levels. It's just a great campaign year after year.
Yeah, and I would say, so for those of you who didn't listen into our podcast last year, I was the Healthcare Simulation Lead 2022. So John and I never crossed paths as far as the people that were on the lead. They're doing it a little differently now, where the team is, there's an overlap, so that there is some historical context and there is some pieces. But what Curtis offered to us as a sim lead group, and it's a group of 3, is, again, the idea of, this is what we've done historically. What would you like to do? And, you know, if we kind of get off into the weeds somewhere, he'll bring us back in and say, well, that was tried once and it really didn't necessarily go over. So he really kind of offers the stability to make sure that Healthcare Simulation Week is growing every year, and it's evolving into something that's even better. So again, I appreciate both of you being a part. John, I know how much work it is to get Healthcare Simulation Week going, but the cool thing is with Healthcare Simulation Week, in the past, it was always that you needed to be a member of the Marketing Communications Committee. And that committee has disbanded because Society for Simulation in Healthcare really has a pretty sophisticated marketing team now. But if you're interested in participating in something that doesn't require a full year commitment, where you're, spending lots and lots of time with lots of projects, but you really want to kind of dip your toe into the water, I encourage you to apply for something like this, because there are opportunities where there's work groups where you can really make a big impact. And I think Healthcare Simulation Week is one of those places that really offers the opportunity to have as much impact at a grassroots level, as you mentioned, Curtis, as you want it to be. So I would like to really, just spend a couple minutes, and I think, Curtis, maybe you're the best one to answer this question, is like talking about the history of Healthcare Sim Week. I know our team kind of had the question of, is it owned by the Society of Simulation in Healthcare, or how is it supported by the Society for Simulation in Healthcare? So if you could give us some kind of historical context to the week and really what it means, or what the desire and the goal is for it.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. So I think it's easier if we start at the beginning, and I promise it won't take long to run through the history. As I mentioned earlier, it started in 2017, so a little bit before I actually came on board with SSH in 2019. But it really was a group of folks looking around in healthcare and beyond and saying, well, how do these other groups all have this week or this day that they get to point at and use as a celebration, or as a marketing tool, right? And realized that healthcare simulation didn't have that. And so there was some conversation back and forth, some thought planning, and it was decided that in September, on the week following September 11th every year, because there was some really intentional thought about not wanting to have the week overlap with that day here in the United States. And so the week after September 11th each year was deemed Healthcare Simulation Week. And from that point on, that's where the roles get a little bit tricky, but once you understand it, I think it makes sense. And that is, it is meant to be a local celebration. It is meant for you to be a part of your community and use the event as something you can point at on the calendar with your organization, with your healthcare system, with your community at large, with the general public, and use that as hey, come find out what we are. Everyone else in our industry is also doing the same thing in a coordinated way. And you should take part in that. And so that's where the local aspect comes from, or the individual customization of your own celebration. And we see it each year on social media with, everything from the, department room cakes to, these pretty elaborate cakes at times, actually, all the way up to having healthcare, having public events, right? Having showing the public what training looks like, showing them what your simulation lab looks like, maybe going to a school and doing a demonstration. All of these different things are tailored by those local groups to make it their own. Now, that said, I mentioned the coordination part of it, and that's where SSH comes in, right? It's twofold. SSH as an organization, yes, that's where the idea started for Healthcare Simulation Week. But as an association, we also want to take part in the week that we now have helped start and create over the years, or that we created several years ago. And so you will see SSH sponsored events, including our 2 webinars that we'll talk about here in a little bit. You'll see the SSH stuff happening as well, that you can get on our official map, that you can put your calendar, your event on our calendar, so that everyone else in our world, in our network, can see that you're doing this thing in your local area. And then past that, and then the marketing aspect of that. Wow, I can't believe I almost forgot that part. The toolkit, this is where the coordination comes in, having some of the same look and feel, some of the same branding. We talked a little bit earlier with John about, the theme development that each year that the planning team does. All of those things are coordinated, and we encourage people to grab that off of our website so that their look and feel is done. They don't have to create all of their own marketing tools, including banners or pins or the giveaway items that they may want to use that week. All of that stuff is available, but that's the kind of twofold involvement that SSH has on this thing. So while we created it, it's not SSH's to own and run. It simply is, we started it, and now we want to see people take it and run.
Yeah, and I would say, because healthcare simulation really evolved, late 90s, early 2000s, it's really international, very internationally focused, as well as interassociational. So the different associations work together, and again, I think that's the nice thing, is that there's a home base, but it's really meant for everybody to share and be excited about. Curtis, you mentioned that every year they develop a theme. And so this year's theme is Launchpad to Legacy, What's Your Next? Which I think is great, right? It asks that question, and it really is meant to kind of stir the next. Our our team, our simulationists, to think about what is our next. So John, simulationists are always looking for the next thing, always really launching it in next endeavors. One, could you talk a little bit about why that was the theme, why that was the one that was decided upon, and what's your next at your simulation center at Riverside?
Sure. So last year, the planning team, we actually changed the format a little. We had events listed every day during the week for Healthcare Sim Week. And what we really wanted to do was increase the accessibility. There's a lot of demands on everyone's time right now, and it was really challenging for folks to find time to carve out to attend each one of these events. So we thought if we focused it down to one or two more impactful webinars, it might allow more of an opportunity for accessibility, availability, and inclusion. So last year, our theme was celebrating your success. We really wanted folks to be able to express and be a champion of their own successes, small and large, right? And this year's platform is really a continuation of that, continuing to allow for folks to share ideas, share challenges, go through some mentoring if needed, and hear what everyone else is doing to share their successes. While Healthcare Sim Week isn't necessarily tied to IMSH, we still want to try to kind of align with the theme for that. And so, the theme for IMSH this year, as we're, looking back and looking forward, we wanted to kind of align with that. So there's so many great simulationists out there, and some of those legacies are, really the foundational elements for what we see as the healthcare simulation community nowadays. So learning from them and then taking that information and propelling our newer or next generation of simulationists forward. So that's where's your launch pad to legacy and what's your next. As far as what's our next at our program, one of the things I think is so cool about this role is you almost develop your next every single day. And it doesn't have to be something dramatic. For me, I think it's a continuum. Everything from smaller projects all the way up to strategic planning. So for me, my next is starting with knocking some things off my to-do list that have been sitting there for a couple of years. We just got a 3D printer, and I'm hoping to become a little more proficient and really integrate that into some of the model design and other programs we're working with. And then long term, something I would really like to see happen for us, but I want to take the time and I want to do it right, is to develop a simulation fellowship for our program.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So that's my spectrum of next that I'm looking at.
Great. And John, I want you to share with everyone what you said about the fact that your Sim Center is for the community. I think it's really important for people to hear that perspective, what you shared, because I think a lot of times we think about, here's our curriculum, this is what we have to do, but don't necessarily always look up and see what the other options might be as far as including people within the community. So could you share a little bit about what you said earlier as we were getting started this morning?
No, thank you for that. I think we're a little unique, not necessarily in our size or our capabilities, but just how we do things, and to have it in a community hospital. So our sim lab is located in a community-based hospital that's on the larger size, but is still very much a community, hospital and health system. And so, as I mentioned earlier, kind of my running tagline is if you're somehow affiliated with the health system and you can find the front door, we'll figure out a way to train you. And so I really see us as a community resource, and that includes everything from all the team members working in the health system, coordinating and collaborating with local colleges and schools, reaching out even to STEM programs and EMS. And I really see us as a community resource, and I want to maintain that so that not only can we kind of spread the word of simulation and the impact that it has on the healthcare community, but also there's so much more, whether it's science, technology, computer programming, education, medicine. It really touches so many different career venues that I think you can really expose folks to and give them an idea that, maybe they haven't found their next yet, but, there's probably something in simulation that will speak to them.
Yeah. And you mentioned the 3D printer, which interestingly enough, so the company that I run, Avkin, we just got a 3D printer that is super sophisticated, $150,000. And I joke because I said it looks like the of Jetson's vending machine, where you just think it in your mind, and all of a sudden it appears in the inbox or whatever you want to say. It's crazy, the amount of sophistication you can get with 3D printing, and it becomes a bit of an addiction, because you really can, whatever you can dream and get into that software, can come out on the other end. So I'm with you on the 3D printing. We at Avkin spent a lot of time with that, because it gives us a really good way to meet our customers' needs quickly without having to wait for parts to come back and say, is the prototype right, or whatever it is. So quick prototyping, and even some manufacturing, which is really cool.
Sure. It's also mesmerizing just to watch it print. It is something really out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, for sure. So Curtis, you mentioned the map in your introduction, and I think it's really important that we highlight the value of that map for not only for your own recognition within your center and within your community, but also on a global level. So can you talk a little bit more in detail about what that map is? And that's just been something that's been done every year, right?
For as long as I can remember at this point. So yeah, it's several years. It's one of those understated tools that carries way more value than you would think, actually. And speaking as an association guy here for just a second, in general, every time I mention this tool to other association people who are doing something similar, or just in data visualization, I've never seen anyone have a reaction of, oh, that's kind of boring, or that doesn't work, or that has no value. They all want to do it after we talk about it. So this map, it's super easy, super fun. You jump on ssih.org, get to the Healthcare Simulation Week event page, and all you do is enter your information on it. But then at the very end, and I think this is where the real value for me comes in, it's twofold. One, it puts your pin on the map, and that's great. That shows us just how far the Healthcare Simulation Week message is spreading, or does each year. And we have hundreds of pens by the time we get to the end of the week. And I'd love to see even go more than that, but it is what it is. The other side of it is it has a box in here. And this was a value add, I think, from probably 3 years ago. And this was allowing centers to put in what they were planning to do in general, not just a bio of their center or their program, but what are you planning on doing during Healthcare Sim Week? And as you hover and move around the map, you can get a feel for just how different celebrations look in different parts of the world. But you also get a sense of how common the ground is that we're standing on, right? That it's all about patient safety, that it's all about collaboration of ideas among programs, that we're all in different ways speaking the same language about wanting to elevate healthcare for everyone. And so that, to me, is the magic of that map, that suddenly you have hundreds of points of data from around the world, all pointed at one goal, and you get to see all the different ways that takes shape. And so if you haven't been on the map before, obviously, I'm telling you, you should do that now. And if you have in the past, please do it again, because I guarantee that your next is different than what it was a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or however long you've been a part of the campaign. Please do it again, because your participation in this thing is absolutely vital to showing just how far and wide the Healthcare Simulation Week message is going.
Yeah, and I mean, some really cool ideas that have been put up on that map. So if you're looking for something to do that might be interesting, take a look at what other people have done. People have gotten really great opportunities to invite their leadership down to see what's happening, inviting potential philanthropic opportunities to come in, inviting high school students. John, you mentioned from STEM, people from a high school STEM program coming in and seeing things and maybe getting excited about healthcare. Again, we want to always be encouraging that next generation of learners and getting them excited about what the opportunities are in healthcare. But again, I think that's a great way to get an idea if you're just looking for, hey, I don't want to think outside the box this year. I just want to see what other people are doing and maybe replicate something like that. Again, really cool ideas that have been put up on that map. And I encourage everyone who is participating, whether it's just simply we're having a cake, or we, to celebrate Healthcare Sim Week, or we're, doing something super sophisticated, that you're putting that on there so you can be counted in the group. I think it's really a cool opportunity for us to have a voice without necessarily having to spend hours and hours doing it, right?
Amy, I'll jump in really quick. Sorry, John. I want to just add, we haven't talked about the hashtag part of that. And I think that's also the magic of this campaign, is that while it is all grassroots, one of the things that drives it together the most is the fact that it is all shareable on social media, or that we want everything to be shared on social media at that point. And so the hashtag for this year is hashtag HCSimWeek24. And make sure that when you're showing everything that you're doing locally, that you hashtag it with that, because quite frankly, look behind the scenes. That's how I find that's the best way for me to see what's going on out there, is just to search the hashtag, and I can see everything that's happening with you all. And then that's how I'm able to share it as well. So I just wanted to throw that piece in there too.
Great. And we'll put that in the comments as well, so people can easily access it. So that's great. I'm not super social media smart, so being able to just put that in and search the hashtag really does help. It's a great advice. John, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, actually, so a couple of things. So to that point, I also want to mention the toolkit that's on the website. So if you're not sure where to start, or, perhaps you're at a facility or an institution that has a marketing team, it is a great resource to just, get some more information for yourself, but also to share it with them. And then you get a whole idea of what Healthcare Sim Week is and how you can participate. And if you're not super social media savvy, it's a good starting point. Back to the map, another great benefit of that is it's an opportunity to collaborate. And I mentioned mentorship earlier. So we get so laser focused on our schedule and what's the next event and what's happening tomorrow. Sometimes you don't even realize there's another sim center down the road in the next city over, or, in the vicinity, doing the same thing or similar things or completely different things, but aligned with what you're trying to do. And so it really gives you a chance to reach out and talk to them and, form collaborations and relationships with folks that may be facing the same challenges. So the map is a very useful tool.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's unique about our industry is we are super collaborative. We share freely, and we're really not in competition with each other, because, again, as you mentioned, Curtis, at the end of the day, it's all about patient safety, and we are all going to be consumers of healthcare at some point. So let's get patient safety top of mind everywhere, and really, again, highlight the benefits of how healthcare simulation does improve patient safety and outcomes, as well as reduce burnout for new learners and all of those different amazing things. So I love the idea of even, hey, let me peek at the map and see how close another activity is. Maybe, we can collaborate on something really cool. So love that concept.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, that's one of the things that's always drawn me to the simulation community, is that it is so freely open and sharing and collaborative, because you join a lot of industries, or you get involved in this kind of technology, and there's a lot of, keeping ideas to yourself. And we just don't see that. It is so freely shared, because we all want the same goal, and that's to do better and keep patients safe and, improve how we do education. So it's fantastic.
That's really cool. So can you give us a rundown of some of the other activities? You've mentioned them a little peripherally. So you said there's 2 webinars that are going to be happening throughout the week. We have the map, the toolkit that, again, people can use as a resource. What other things are you doing as far as planned activities for the week?
I'm sorry, was that?
So really,
sorry. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Really, the 2 planned activities are the webinars, but at the same point, it's, hosting, providing a platform and a venue for everyone to share what they're doing. The great thing about Healthcare Sim Week is there's no right or wrong way to do it. Most of us could post or share something that we've done every day. It could be an enduring educational activity all the way up to a specific event that's been planned for the week. And all of that is valuable, to the rest of the community. And all of those things are, opportunities to reflect on the amazing things that we're doing every day. And we often, as I keep mentioning, get so busy that we forget to do that. We forget to take a step back and go, wow, we did a lot this year. And so this is really that chance to share those things and think about those things.
So John, what are the webinars?
Oh, so there's 2 of them. And I think these are pretty cool ideas that the planning team came up with. The first is, what's your next? And so that is an opportunity we have reached out to some of the special interest groups with a specific focus. So things like standardized patients, the operation specialists, the educators, and we are asking them to come to the webinar and share a little bit about what their next is. Where do they see, the path of that interest group going, and then allowing folks that are interested or have are participating in those interest groups to be able to ask questions and share what they're doing in a similar vein. And then the second webinar, we've kind of casually called Ask the Director. So we've asked the different directors from the Simulation Society to field questions from the group. And so this really gives you an opportunity. If you've been wondering about certification, been wondering about accreditation, or what do I do next? How do I start? Maybe I've run into some hiccups and challenges. How can I, mitigate those? It'll be an open forum, not only with your peers and your colleagues, but, the leadership from the society that can provide some of those answers and insights.
Great. So how do they get those questions in to be asked during that webinar? Is it just going to be something that they join the webinar and they can put it in the chat, or are you asking for those questions to come ahead of time?
I'll throw that to you, Curtis.
Sure. No, it'll be live. We all know the magic of on our digital presentations. Sometimes we may have a seed question or two, but really this is going to be community driven. I will say, part of this concept came out of the idea that SSH just rolled out its brand new strategic plan earlier this year. And so there is a lot of next for SSH. And as it filters down and starts to flesh itself out through the different departments, through accreditation, certification, education, membership, and even our events, then this gives our directors a chance to explain some of those new things that are coming. And so as the community hears those things and has questions of their own, right, to John's point, you don't always get a direct line right to some of the leadership in SSH, even though we try really hard to be available. It's just limited time, limited resource, right, being a digital association or a virtual association. Those questions can come live during the Q&A. And then if we don't, one of our standard procedures is if you don't get your question answered during that Q&A, we certainly keep track of those, and then we'll follow up with you afterwards. So we want everyone to be involved or be on the webinar, and then feel free to ask questions, because even if we don't get it directly, we'll get you an answer.
Great. All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Curtis, did you have other things that you wanted to add for the activities for the week? I know John had some things, and I kind of cornered him about the webinar.
Right. No, that's fine. I think John hit it. For us, this serves a couple of boxes for us. SSH, like I mentioned, is a virtual association. I'm not sure everyone actually knows that, because they do see us in person at IMSH. They see it at SimOps. They see us at other regional events throughout the year, but we don't even have a building. So running completely virtually, we feel like this is our wheelhouse in order to provide education and provide some programming and content during the week. That's our best foot forward, right? This is what we do as SSH. And so that's where we're going to be. But otherwise, other events, I mentioned the calendar that's also available on the event website. That's where, if you all have your own events, you want someone to visit your center, you've got some public relations or community events, things happening, media outreach, any of that kind of stuff, feel free to put it on the calendar so that people can see what you've got going on in your own area as well.
Great. So if you had somebody that came to you, John, I'll let you go first on this, but then Curtis, I want you to think about it from a historical perspective, and just kind of some of the cool things that you've heard along the way. If you had someone come to you who had never done Healthcare Simulation Week in the past, and they're like, hey, I want to get involved, I want to do something, what can I do? What advice would you give them, as far as, I know the toolkit's there, so I'm not gonna let you say that one.
Okay, got it.
But what other things would you recommend as someone who's dipping their toe into the water, and they have some time, they're excited about it, they're kind of new to this, but they want to get involved. But what are some of advice would you give them on that?
Honestly, the best advice I can give is don't be afraid or hesitant to participate. As I mentioned earlier, there's no right or wrong way to do that. And it can be something that is seemingly small. You may think that it's not a big deal or, super exciting, but it is. This community is such that we're all excited about each other's programs and our successes. So if you take that moment to kind of step back and reflect and think about all the amazing things that you're doing, all the impacts that you're having in your own center, in your own system, you'll find something to share. But also, one side benefit of this is an opportunity to advocate for your own program, especially if you're a smaller center but in a larger system. This may be an opportunity to share with your leadership everything that you're doing and how far your reach is within this health system. And highlighting some of that can generate a lot of interest. And, that's always a good thing to let people know the great things that you're doing. So really, don't be afraid. Don't be hesitant. If you have any questions, the Healthcare Sim team is here. The website is there. The toolkit's there. And, there's a lot of opportunities to share what you're doing.
Yeah, great. Curtis, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say to echo John's point a little bit, start somewhere, right? And the way I like to think of it is the Mississippi River even started as a raindrop at one point. So you've got to start, and if you never start, you'll never get bigger. And so that said, even if it is simply talking to people in your department about healthcare simulation, if you're the only one who's doing it in your department, right? It past that, then you start going out, you start to ripple effect a little bit, right? Start talking to the people who are else around your organization. Even just do the cake, bring in some treats, whatever it is, just to draw. The point of the entire campaign is to bring attention to healthcare simulation and its impact on patient care. And so just using this week as the excuse, if you will, if you even need that, as the reason or excuse to bring up the conversation with the key stakeholders in and around your department, this is the time to do it. And that was, we talked about the history of the campaign. That's why it was put on the map, is that you can pull something and say, look, there is a larger community and a larger movement around this. This is what I'm a part of. Here's why I'm talking to you about it now. And so we're trying to erase that individualistic, localized, super localized, isolationist feel about healthcare sim, because it's not that way anymore. You're not just one person in one area. You're part of thousands around the world. SSH's membership is now around 5,000 members. We have more than 250 accredited programs around the world, and that number is growing exponentially. The word is getting out there. You're part of a larger community that's doing amazing things in healthcare, and this is your week to tell people about it.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it's a great conversation starter. Even something as simple as printing the poster and hanging it on your front door. That could get, hey, tell me more about this. And it's those simple conversations that really go a long way.
Yeah. And I would assume, Curtis, that I haven't checked, I should have, but the map is beginning to be populated. Is that correct on the SSH website?
Sure is. Yeah. So, two ways to get there. One, if you're on the ssh.org website, look for events or look on the calendar, you'll see it. You can click that way. Or if you're just, a Googler, just pop in Healthcare Simulation Week 2024, and it'll get you there as well. But yes, pens are starting to show up on the map. We're a little over 100 so far. I'd put that probably 20%-ish, like where we probably plan to be this year. Would love to see that number hit over 600, 700 this year. I think that would be a great number. So please, if you haven't done it already, get in there and do it. If you have, make sure you're talking to your network. You know other people out there that probably haven't. Make sure they get their centers on there as well.
Yeah, and I would say, if you're looking for something to do and you're new, you're not really sure, go check out some of the pins and see what other people are doing, right? They're sharing their ideas, they're sharing their stories. And one thing that I think has the biggest impact, that's easy to do, is to do a small video at the end of simulations of maybe one or two of the learners and letting them share what the impact of that particular day meant for them. What are they going to carry with them into their professional practice? And so I think, that's a simple, you could do a little quick compilation of that and share it at either a faculty meeting or share it online. Obviously share it in a pin on the map. But those are things that are easy to do that don't require a whole lot of pre-planning, but are also talking about the impact that is going to be lasting for the learners that are participating in these simulation experiences. So I want to thank both of you for joining us. I want to reiterate, I think, Curtis, you mentioned this at the beginning, but it's always the week after September 11th. So this year it is September 16th to the 20th. Is that right? Or do we start on the 15th on a Sunday?
That's always a point of debate for the worldwide community.
I remember that.
Yeah, officially it's Monday through Friday. So in the US it's 16 through 20, but certainly if you start a day early, no one's going to be angry about it.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for participating in this and getting the word out. And we are really excited here at Avkin to really be able to spread the word about what we're doing and getting more people involved and getting more pins on the board. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity, Amy. It was really great to chat with you today.